Daniel Greenfield is on the line with us, a blogger and columnist with Front Page Magazine. He is the Shulman Journalism Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. His website, Sultan Knish, SultanKnish.blogspot.com, and his Twitter handle is at Sultan Knish. Sultan Knish, Daniel?
Sultan Knish, indeed.
That's great. I congratulate you on your creativity. So you wanted to explain to me how democratic socialism and Senator Sanders' positions are that Claire McCaskill was right, that you guys are just waiting to run the hammer and sickle ads, right?
Oh, in a political campaign, you go with what you've got, and certainly democratic socialism, or just to most people, socialism, is going to be controversial.
Why?
Why? Well, to most people, it's associated with communism. It's associated with deprivation of individual freedom, the ability to choose things, like the ability to choose your health care, the ability to choose what kind of small business you open, and just the ability to live your own life.
Okay, so when did Bernie Sanders say he was going to tell you what kind of business you could and couldn't open?
He didn't say that he was going to do that explicitly, but okay. I'm talking about the association of the ideology itself, and certainly Bernie Sanders talking about how there are too many brands of underarm deodorant and how we need to make sacrifices for this and for that. Certainly it gives off that sort of air to some people.
Okay. Is Social Security a socialist program?
Depends on how you look at it. Certainly you could view it that way.
How could it not be viewed as a socialist program?
Well, currently it's unfunded, so that's certainly a hallmark of socialism.
There's $2.6 trillion in the Social Security Trust Fund, but whether there is or isn't, it seems to me like Social Security is obviously socialism. Medicare is socialism, right?
You could certainly look at it that way, but again, this is about how it's implemented and how it's managed.
Okay. How is unemployment insurance not socialism?
Again, you could certainly say that there are parts of our economy that are socialist. There are parts of our government that are socialist. Nobody's going to fundamentally argue with that.
Right. How is a federal highway system not socialism?
Well, federal highway system is more legitimately within the purview of government. It's not an attempt to manage people's lives to that degree. But
then how is socialism not one of the founding principles of this country, given that, Article 1, Section 8 specifically calls for the federal government to build roads, among other things?
Well, that's really not socialism. In any case, the founding of our country predates what we consider socialism, so really that argument doesn't hold too much water.
Well, okay, then please tell me what socialism is that you're so concerned about. I'm assuming, first of all, maybe I'm wrong. Do you oppose Social Security? Do you think it should be turned over to Wall Street? Do you think it should be privatized?
Well, really, let's look at what the Democrats who are objecting to Bernie Sanders are saying.
No, I'm asking your definition of socialism, because you're saying that socialism is going to hurt him. Do you oppose Social Security? Do you think it should be privatized?
Are the Medicare for All, universal health care. They're saying that this is too socialist, too extreme for most Americans, and certainly there's a point to be made for that. Really?
Was it too extreme for most Canadians, for most Israelis, for most Brits, for most French, for most Germans, for most Swedes, for most Danes? No. I mean, can you give me any country in the world that has had single-payer health care and has said, hey, this is crazy, this doesn't work?
There have been a whole lot of problems with single-payer health care in any number of countries, including the UK. The NHS has had a huge amount of problems. The implementation...
Then why has David Cameron not done away with it? He's a conservative.
Vermont single-payer has been a disaster. They've had to shut it down.
Vermont does not have a single-payer health care system, never did.
They tried for it, completely financially unfeasible.
They could not do it because they did not have a large enough tax base. That's the whole key to a single-payer system, is that you have a large base. They only had 600,000 people living in the state, and only about 200,000 of them who were employed. It's not enough to do a single-payer health care system, or at least that's my understanding from speaking to them. But my point is, I think that Americans are fundamentally socialist. They don't generally use that word. And that when folks like you start attacking people like Bernie Sanders for being socialist, and people realize that what you're really saying is that you think that Social Security should be handed off to the banksters on Wall Street, that you think that Medicare and Medicaid should be handed off to the banksters at United Healthcare, that you think that that public highways should become toll roads that are owned by billionaires, that public utilities, water systems, septic systems, electric systems should, half of them in this country right now are publicly owned. They're owned by governments, that they should all be privatized, that our schools should all be handed off to for-profit charter schools. When people hear that, they're going to say, I'd rather have socialism.
Right now, it's actually the Democrats who are attacking Bernie Sanders for being socialist, and actually it's Republicans who are defending him. You're seeing an ad run in his support from Karl Rove. So it's Republicans who are defending him, socialist or not, and Democrats who are attacking him.
What I haven't seen Karl Rove's ad. Is it a pro-Bernie ad or an anti-Hillary ad? I thought he was running an anti-Hillary.
It's anti-Hillary, but it's also arguably pro-Bernie.
What good did it say about Bernie? I haven't seen it.
You can see defenses of Bernie Sanders' policies in National Review right now. There have been multiple defenses of his position on health care.
Right.
You have defenses of him coming from the RNC, for that matter.
Right. Well, he's running as a Democrat. Oh, from the RNC, the Republican National Committee. What has the RNC defended Bernie on?
They defended him on the health care issue. Again, I think some of this has appeared in the Daily Beast piece.
So the RNC thinks that single-payer health care is better than Obamacare?
They think it's close enough that it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Wow. Are they just uninformed about health care policy?
They consider both to be socialism.
That's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? I mean, like you mentioned the NHS in England, and that is a socialist healthcare system. The hospitals are owned by the government. The doctors are government employees. Single payer, on the other hand, in Canada, the government owns no hospitals. It pays, there are no doctors who are employees, other than maybe a few consultants at the federal level. You have hospital. For example, Mass General Hospital has an entire floor with several hundred employees whose only job is to deal with insurance companies and get billing done. There's a similar hospital in Toronto that has roughly the same number of beds and does roughly the same number of operations. And their entire billing staff is in one room on one desk, and it's comprised of 3 people, one of them part-time.
But at the end of the day, you end up outsourcing that to a different kind of level of centralization, and the costs still get passed down to hospitals. They still get passed down to level. I'm sure that you're wrong about that. That the overhead with private health insurance, for-profit health insurance, by law now has been cut back to 25% maximum that you can take and not pay for health insurance with. But the overhead of Medicare and Medicaid is 3%, and the overhead of the Canadian system is around 3.2%. You're moving the bureaucracy to one place or another. Either the bureaucracy is going to be in the doctor's office, which is why a lot of doctors are now consolidating and moving into hospitals, into larger practices. It's going to be at the hospital level, which again is going to be passed down. It's going to be at the government level. It's going to be at the health insurance level, but you're still going to have this huge clog of bureaucracy.
What am I missing here? Why is it that in Canada with a single-payer system, an entire hospital with hundreds of beds has 3 people doing billing? That's the entire bureaucracy. And in the United States, Mass General has 200-300 people doing. They have a huge bureaucracy to deal with the huge bureaucracy of the insurance companies. What am I missing?
The bureaucracy doesn't have to be in the hospital, but it's still going to exist, and it's still going to affect the actual cost of health care.
I think it's vanished in Canada.
Hospital, you can have it in the government, you can have it anywhere, but if you're still going to have a whole bunch of people in the room trying to figure out how to do cost savings.
Okay, Daniel Greenfield. You can read his blog over at Sultan Knish, KNISH.blogspot.com. You can tweet him at Sultan Knish. Daniel, thank you. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.